Hey, our nerds, we are going to be talking about the element of space. And there's a video that I'd like you guys to watch in the description below that talks a little bit more about space, different types of space, and how we can use space in the artwork we create. So check that out and then jump back on this video. Space is referred to as the creation of depth in an artwork. And that's talking about foreground, middle ground, and background. And basically, we're thinking of art as having layers. The things that are closest to us are towards the front. So this would be the foreground. So our subject oftentimes of whatever we are looking at, be it landscape, so an image of nature or a portrait of someone. So usually the foreground's our subject and the most important thing. As you move further back, you have the middle ground, and that's the area in between your subject or your foreground and your background. Sometimes artwork does not have a middle ground, but this is what we refer to the stuff in the middle. In this case, it would be these trees. And then our background is usually the thing that's further off into the distance, or maybe it's just the sky, or maybe it's a blank, black or white background, just a solid color. Okay. And so it's always the thing that's in the furthest back, the furthest away from us. Okay. And that's how I sort of identify the different layers in space for an artwork. Now, there's another way we can kind of interpret space. So it's not only the creation of depth or making something flat like a piece of paper or canvas appear to go further and further away, or that it's a little bit deeper than it really is. We also refer to it as the area above, below, within, and around an object or objects in your artwork. So basically, space is all of it, because if it's the area around an object, but it's also the area inside the object, okay, it is empty space, but also anything that takes up space. And we have names to describe both of those different types of space that we're discussing. First, we have positive space, and that is the space an object takes up. So in this case, it would be the scissors, because the scissors takes up space, okay? And then it would also be the chair, because the chair takes up space. You can touch it. The other type of space, so the opposite of positive, is negative. And when we talk about negative space, we're referring to the empty space around an object or objects. So that could be the background, so the space behind it, or the space around it. It also refers to as the space in between. So for these objects, I can kind of poke my finger through each of those empty spaces. So my fingers can go through the handholds on the scissors. My arm could go through the parts on the chair. So that's empty space or negative space. We can create space in a bunch of different ways. And by we, I mean artists. And the first is by creating the illusion of space by overlapping. And that's when you have one object appear to be in front of the other object because it overlaps it. So in this image, the red circle appears to be closer to us than the blue circle because it is in front of it. Okay. And you can check that out in real life. Something appears to be closer to you because it's in front of something else. Then we also have placement. And what that refers to is where an object is placed on your paper or on your canvas. So how high or low it is. So in this second image, the red circle also appears to be closer to us, but that's because the blue circle is higher up. Okay, they're not overlapping, it's just higher up. And it appears to be slightly further away, but it also appears to be kind of larger, which we'll be getting to in just a moment. Size also plays a huge role in creating the illusion that something is further away. And we create that by having the object that's closest being a nice big shape, and the further and further away the object goes, the smaller and smaller it gets. And finally, we have perspective. And when we talk about perspective, we are talking about using lines to create a work of art. And I'll be showing you that in one of our artworks in just a moment. But that's how we can create this 3D cube. And a lot of times in perspective, we're talking about 1 or 2 point perspective. And if you look really closely, there's a tiny little red dot on what we call the horizon line, so that horizontal line in the background. And we use that dot to help create the illusion of depth by using linear perspective, so using lines to create perspective. And we'll be talking about that more in just a short bit. So there's a couple artworks I wanted to share with you guys, and this is The Last Supper by Leonardo da Vinci, created in 1498. And it looks like a painting, but that's because this is a reproduction of it. The real thing is actually a fresco, so paint sort of mixed together with plaster or stone. And this paint, as it ages, chips off and falls away, which is why it doesn't look this good in real life. A lot of pieces of the artwork is missing. And it's actually much bigger. Okay. And the one thing I want to talk to you guys about is it has space, but how does it have space? Does it have space because things are overlapping, by placement, by the size of the objects within it, or perspective? The one that sticks out the most for me is actually perspective. So if we take a look at the big image, okay, so this is the whole thing. You got a bunch of guys sitting on one side of a table. If you look at the ceiling and if you look at the floor, you might notice that there's some lines. So we have this line, and it goes straight to the dude in the middle, okay? In the image, his name is Jesus, okay? And the reason why all of these lines are pointing straight to him is not just to construct a believable space, so looking like the room goes on, but it's to direct our eyes towards this individual because he's the most important person. So the lines lead us oftentimes to where we want our subjects or our viewers to look at. And the use of perspective in this work was on point because it's leading our eyes straight to the main figure within this image. Then we have George Serra's Sunday Afternoon on the Isle of the Grand Jean, which is a really cool painting. And if you look really, really, really closely, it's actually made up of a whole bunch of dots. And he layers all these dots together to create the illusion of all the different colors that you see. So like purple is actually red and blue dots mixed together. It's pretty crazy. Anyways, this style of art, pointillism, is just part of the reason why I wanted to share with you guys. The other part is that it's also a great example of space. And how do we feel that it's creating space? Are there things that are overlapping in the image? Are things placed higher and lower to look like they're further away? Are the sizes different? Is perspective involved? Is there a bunch of lines? The ones that stick out for me are overlapping and placement. Okay, those are the biggest ones for me, but also size. So if you take a look at our closest figures, so you have the lady with the black parasol on the far right and also a man standing next to her, we can tell that the woman is closer to us than the man because they're overlapping, and that's repeated throughout the whole thing. Then you also have placement. Okay, there's another lady, but she has an orange parasol, and she is further back. But notice where her feet are. Okay, if you drew a line straight across where her feet touch the ground and a line straight across where our first figure, the lady with the black parasol, the lady with the orange parasol is higher up, creating the illusion that she's further away. And she is also smaller. Okay, you can notice there's some images of people in the further back that are even smaller. You see the same thing with the trees. So Serra is using overlapping placement and size to create the illusion of depth, or that this park is huge, which is really cool. Here we have Johannes Vermeer's painting created in 1665. And I really like his work. Everything's so crisp and smooth and neat. It has a lot of really nice details. Take a look at that tablecloth or the window. It is just really cool. And he has a painting within a painting. You can see there's one in the background. Pretty wild. Anyways, I want to talk to you guys about how this artist also uses space. Do you feel like things are overlapping in it? Or is there placement of things, size, perspective? What sticks out to you? There's a couple for me. And that's overlapping, placement, and perspective. So overlapping, I know that the table is closer to me than the woman because the woman's behind it, okay? And that the chair is even closer because it's in front of everything else. So overlapping things create the illusion that this is an actual room. Then you also have the placement of things, okay? Notice how the figure in the background's higher up, okay, than the woman at the table. Yeah, she's sitting down, but where that woman's feet would be in comparison to the other also plays a role in the placement of here. Also, you can compare the woman that's standing to the chair, okay? The chair's farther down, okay? So it's also closer. And then we also have perspective, okay? Take a look at the floor, okay? Those are all perspective lines, okay? And if you take a look at the angle from the top of the window and the bottom of the window, and they come together in a V, and the line coming from the corner of the wall and the line coming from the floor, and it all kind of directs you to the woman that's writing a letter, Okay. And that's because she's the main figure in the painting. Okay. I can't quite remember the name of it, but it's like, woman writing a letter or something simple like that. And so he's using perspective to remind us who the subject of the image is. It's not the lady where we see her face gazing out the window, it's the action of the woman writing. And then lastly, we have Albert Bierstadt. Okay, he created this work in 1870. Okay, and that's during a time period where everyone is, curious about the world around them, or you're curious about the, westward expansion, checking out where all these places are, or even going down in South America. South America was a really cool thing, and so artists were sent out to depict these places and to bring it back to the cities to entice people to go and travel or go and find a new place to live out in nature where it's beautiful. Anyway, this artist, Bierstadt, used space to create these very realistic landscape images. And the ones that stick out for me is overlapping of things and the size of things, okay? We can tell that certain trees are in front of each other, or that the trees are in front of the mountains because they're overlapping, okay? They're closer to us, they're in front of the mountain. And then you also have the size of things. Notice how the size of trees significantly changes from the ones that are close to us. So think of the one that's on the far, far right. And then look at the ones that are across the river. Okay, look how small those are. And so it gives us the illusion that this is far, far away, which is perfect for what this image is trying to convey. And one other thing that we haven't talked about yet is the value in a work of art. As things get further and further away, they start to blend in with the sky. And you can see that with the mountain here, how we can see it's pretty decently defined on the far left. But as it gets closer and closer to the sun, as it gets further and further away, it kind of blends together with the sky. And that's called atmospheric perspective, which is really neat. And that's why our trees that are close to us are more vivid or really dark brown and a vivid green. And then further away, they're kind of hazy. Okay. So the detail and kind of goes to the wayside as you get further away. So it's less and less detail as it goes further away. And it also starts blending with the sky, which is really neat. Now, I want you guys to check this out. This is a street artist, Nate, and he creates some really cool artwork that give the illusion of space on flat areas, such as, a city street or sidewalk tiles, and makes some really cool stuff. So definitely check this out. It's in the description below. And he creates, things like this. Crazy stuff. Check it out. Anyways, so this is all I have for about the element of space. I hope this video helps you understand it a little bit better, and check out my other videos.